What do you think is the biggest problem facing the automotive industry?
Well, I would say probably one of the biggest and most obvious ones is trade policy. And it's not just a matter of, I'm not a protectionist by any means. Not at all. I'm a free market capitalist. But the problem is, we're free market capitalists, but basically no one else in the world is. And we think it's that way, but it's not. We've got a one-way flow of vehicles into North America, and they don't flow out. And the reason they don't flow out is because they're taxed and they're tariffed, and there are even what they call NBTs, or non-business trade barriers. There's a term for it that our own State Department uses. And that is the practices like South Korea, for example. Buy an imported car, get a tax audit. Okay? And it doesn't even matter if it's imported from this country or imported across the Sea of Japan. For example, you always hear the argument made that Americans can't sell cars in Japan because our cars are too big, our steering wheel isn't on the same side, and all this other nonsense that's out there in the debate cluttering things up. The truth of it is, even small cars from a company like Hyundai don't sell in Japan.
I've got to interrupt you here because I think there's a number out there that I read. What is it, like 400 or 700 cars last year?
I was just going to, in 2008, which I'll say one of the last normal years that we had in the auto industry, Hyundai managed to sell 502 cars in Japan.
And I understand that American domestics weren't even 10,000.
Well, just so you understand, Japan is a 3 million unit a year market. 502 cars from Hyundai? That's ridiculous. Hyundai's been trying to penetrate the Japanese market for 10 years, and they just gave up last year. They finally said it's not worth it to sell 500 cars a year. But conversely, the South Korean market, which is about a little over 1 million units a year, 1.2% of that market went to the Japanese. So these other countries, they don't just not trade with us, they don't trade with each other. But what we do is we let them come on in here, sell all you want. You're welcome to the world's, up until China, you're welcome to the world's largest automotive market. And by the way, keep your own home market protected.
And here we have what journalists, and I say this, I think it's unfortunate that they are, but they're referencing the automobiles that are transplants built here as new domestics, and certainly they aren't domestics. We are not allowed to build cars in some of these Asian countries. Of course, China, we build Buicks there, and Buick has a presence. And
one of those facts that's not widely reported in the media that is known to people who, live and die by automotive news and Auto World and these trade publications is that General Motors is forced into a partnership with 50% partnership with a company that's a Shanghai Automotive Corporation. That's a Chinese company. And in order for General Motors to manufacture over there, they must take on a 50% partner. Ford has a partner over there too. Any company that wants to build over there has to take on a Chinese partner. Well, why do you think that is, John? Do you think it's because they're going to be content being minority partners forever, or do you think it's because they want to learn from our companies so they can eventually kick us out and start shipping to our country?
That presents a little bit of a problem, for sure.
Well, that's part of the bastardized Chinese capitalism, that they take the things they like about capitalism and they keep the things they like about communism.
Yeah. We've got about 10 minutes left in the show, and I want to get some more of these things in here. This is great. We may have to come back at another time to do this. It's so good. Unions. Some people, and Detroit's a big union town. St. Louis is a big union town, a number of others. And I may not be a union person 100%, but if it weren't for the unions and the people that were making the money working in this country, who knows what would happen to the economy? We have a great middle class. What role do you think that the unions play in what we're referencing, of course, as a crisis in this country now?
John, I'm not going to sit here and try to defend every policy and every action that the UAW has taken, or any union. But again, it's one of those instances where you don't know what you don't know. If you understand what I mean by that, is we don't realize that most of these other countries that are auto producers have unions too. And for an example, in Germany, they have a union that's called IG Metall. German union membership per capita is twice what it is in this country. And these people hold political power that the UAW could only dream of, okay? Yet, at the same time, Germany is has been the world's largest exporter. They run a trade.
Wait a minute, say that again.
The world's
we want to make
largest
sure
exporter.
that people catch that.
Exactly. And they do it with twice the per capita union membership. And they pay their workers better than they pay them here. They get more vacation time. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating for any of this, but that's what I'm trying to say, that this union is this union idea that this is what's dragging down the auto industry. It's a red herring. They run multiple $100 billion trade surpluses with the rest of the world, and they do it with a country that's more unionized than the United States.
Roger, I want to address this to you because you're the guy that you're in the automotive tooling supplier business. A little bit about the transplants that they reference as new domestics. You got transplants. They're foreign-owned factories in the U.S. And then what about the U.S.-owned factories that are in Mexico and Canada?
Well, the thing is it's another issue you bring up, what's problem facing our industry. It takes millions of dollars to put these lines up, from the tooling, from the engineering, and there's a lot of things behind the scenes that the public doesn't see. The transplants are here. So what happens is, if we're in their need for small cars, they can always come and ship their small cars over and flood our market with small cars. Well, we already have the lines up. We're already producing the cars. So we can't switch in that kind of speed.
I think what Roger's getting at is that because these other countries that specialize in small cars, okay, you know, we all know gas costs more in Europe and gas costs more in Asia, and that's the result of their governments tax that fuel to create a demand for small cars. And then they get to protect their home markets, okay? And then they get to sell over here in this country, where we don't have those government increased fuel prices. So they can use the transplant factories as a base of operations to build minivans and pickup trucks and SUVs, okay? But when our gas prices swing high for a brief period of time, they can ramp up the imports without any of the fixed cost that the domestics have for building small cars in Illinois, Michigan, Ohio. They can come over here without those fixed costs, and they can achieve huge economies of scale because, remember, they've got their protected home markets, which are multi-million unit-a-year markets. They've got those markets, and then they get huge economies of scale. Well, they can take that economy of scale, and they can do a number of things with it. They can put the money back into the car and offer more features or refresh the car more often. They can cut the price, or they can, they can do kind of a combination of both, which is probably what goes on. I've got a chart here that comes from Automotive News, and every week they put a chart in the back that shows what's built in what plants, what's being built in North America.
The cars by name, by brand.
Exactly.
Where?
What you see represented on here in blue is the transplant production. That is pickup trucks, SUVs, and minivans.
The blue, again, represents?
That represents the pickup trucks, SUVs, minivans, and sedans that are larger than anything they build in their home markets.
Okay.
Now, do you want to know what the pink represents, the two pink lines?
My next question.
That's how many compact vehicles, that's how many compact lines come from import car companies that are built in this country. And actually, one of those is about to go away. So you can see that it works. Small cars work for them because they don't build them here. They build the cars Americans want in this country. At the same time, the domestics are building those small cars in this country.
So I'm going to bring up three questions real fast, and then we're going to close on one. Just why haven't American companies put more effort into small cars? Why so much emphasis on larger vehicles?